Maxpro Northern Cement, Ahon, Bangon, Sulong, and SMC Global Power.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles and you're watching Eagle News International. On tonight's headlines. The world hit a record number of COVID infections in a 7-day period with more than 935,000 cases detected on average each day between December 22 to the 28th.
So of course,
Malacanang today enjoined local government units to impose granular or localized lockdowns in areas with an uptick in COVID cases to prevent infections from again reaching an alarming level. And COVID cases hit record highs in US and parts of Europe, and Omicron is behind the rapid virus spikes according to the WHO in its COVID weekly epidemiological update. And one of the world's most famous storytellers, Hans Christian Andersen, is being celebrated in his hometown of Odense or central Denmark with a new museum designed by Japanese architect Kengo Kuma, which combines biographical elements with a fantasy world.
Fairy tales, because that's...
First in our news, the world hit a record number of COVID infections in a 7-day period with more than 935,000 cases detected on average each day, and this is between December 22 to December 28, according to an AFP tally. The figures, the highest since the virus first emerged at the end of 2019, are based on tolls given daily by health authorities in each country. A large share of the less serious or asymptomatic cases remain undetected despite ramped-up testing in many countries since the pandemic began. Also, testing policy varies from one country to another, with 6,550,000 cases recorded between December 22 and the 28th, or an average of 935,863 a day. The virus is spreading at an unprecedented speed. Meanwhile, Omicron still poses very high risk and could overwhelm healthcare systems, the WHO warned today, as the highly transmissible coronavirus variant of Omicron fueled record outbreaks in many countries. The overall risk related to the new variant of concern, Omicron, remains very high, according to the UN Health Agency in its COVID-19 weekly epidemiological update. Consistent evidence shows that the Omicron variant has a growth advantage over the Delta variant with a doubling time of 2 to 3 days. Case numbers have shot up 11% globally in the last week, forcing governments from China to Germany and France to find a difficult balance between antivirus restrictions and the need to keep economies and societies open. The Netherlands and Switzerland said Omicron had become the dominant strain in their countries, and while some studies suggested it causes milder COVID-19, the World Health Organization urged caution. More than 440,000 new cases were recorded in the U.S. on Monday, according to health officials. U.S. cases recorded by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention rose by 441,278 on December 27, by far the highest number of cases ever reported to the agency. The CDC data tracker says U.S. media report the 7-day average rise in infections is now at its highest level since January this year. A CDC spokeswoman told news site Politico that the latest infection figures could be overestimated due to lags in testing and test center closures over the holiday period, adding that case numbers would become more stable after the new year. And Europe once again is in the hot spots for the pandemic, which is known to have claimed more than 5.4 million lives around the world. France, Britain, Greece, and Portugal all reported record daily case numbers on Tuesday. France reported almost 180,000 infections over 24 hours. To hold back the tide, many nations on the continent have brought back curbs with heavy economic and social consequences. Contact restrictions were in place in Germany for the second year in a row, heading into the new year, as Europe's biggest economy shut nightclubs and forced sports competitions behind closed doors. It also limited private gatherings to 10 vaccinated people or 2 households where any unvaccinated people are present. Finland also on Tuesday said it would bar unvaccinated foreign travelers from entering. Only residents, essential workers, or diplomats will be exempt. The Nordic country, like Sweden, had begun requiring negative tests for incoming non-resident travelers from Tuesday, a day after Denmark applied the same measure. But the Belgian government's plans to introduce further restrictions were thwarted as the court suspended an order closing entertainment venues. Prime Minister Alexander De Croo had announced the original measure on December 22 as Belgium saw a sharp increase in the percentage of tests showing the Omicron variant. Here in the country, a health official today said cases of coronavirus are expected to increase due to holiday-related mobility. In a Viber message to reporters, Department of Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergeire said the uptick in the number of infections was also caused by reduced compliance to the minimum public health standards. She said we are continuously monitoring the situation, though we cannot still be certain that the increase in cases is due to the Omicron variant. And she added we are calling on the public and the LGUs or local government units to ensure safety protocols are implemented and every Filipino is vaccinated. Today, the DOH reported 889 new infections, more than 50% higher compared to the 421 cases reported Tuesday, bringing the country's overall tally to 2,839,790. The Octa Research Group said late Tuesday night that the positivity rate in the NCR has increased by 5% for the first time since October. Positivity rate is the percentage of COVID tests performed which turned out positive in a certain area or region. The group reminded the public to observe the proper health protocols as the increase may not just be a holiday uptick. Meanwhile, Malacanang today enjoined local government units to impose granular or localized lockdowns in areas with an uptick in COVID cases to prevent infections from again reaching an alarming level. Acting Presidential Spokesperson, Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles said President Duterte and the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases are concerned about the surge in infections, noting that LGUs should step up in efforts to control the movement of people. Take a look.
So of course, we are getting concerned. Of course, we are getting worried. At dapat lang. Kaya, ang panawagan, LUs, please enforce. Pag may tumataas ang bilang ng kaso, granular lockdown. Hindi po nawala sa equation ang granular lockdown. At responsibilidad po ng LGU mag-granular lockdown pag may nakita kayong clustering of cases. Huwag nating kalimutan yan. Huwag nating hayaan na lumaki pa ito. Again, this is a shared responsibility. Hindi po dapat nakaatang lamang sa balikat ng pamahalaan ninyo or ng LGU. Nakaatang ito sa balikat nating lahat. It is a shared responsibility of all. Self-policing among yourselves, in your family, in your community, sa inyong barangay, lahat po tayo, wag nating sayangin ang lahat ng pinaghirapan po nating lahat.
The entire country is currently under Alert Level 2, where most activities are allowed at a 50% indoor venue capacity for fully vaccinated individuals and at 70% outdoor venue capacity. As of today, the Philippines' COVID cases jumped to 889, bringing the total number of cases to over 2.8 million. In a Viber message, as earlier reported, DOH Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergeire said COVID cases are expected to increase due to holiday-related mobility. Back to the U.S., New Yorkers are burning pieces of paper with their worst memories of 2021 written on them on Good Riddance Day at Times Square. COVID-19 was a popular theme, with people wishing to say goodbye to virtual learning and quarantines. Take a look.
These are all of Julian's financial headaches. Here are all the documents.
I want to get rid of COVID and quarantines so that my kids can be normal again and see their friends and be out and be social.
To get rid of online uni, because it's been more than 1.5 years that I've been doing uni online, and I would so much like that this year in 22 to be able to do online uni at in person.
The new year is a time of reflecting on the past, saying goodbye to things that we don't want to bring into 2022, into the new year. This is an old Latin American tradition of burning a doll and throwing it over your head. So we are burning anything that we want to leave behind in 2021.
And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
Welcome back. A 5.7 magnitude earthquake struck off the Greek island of Crete today, according to the Athens Observatory, with no damage reported. The quake struck at 04:08 GMT with an epicenter in the sea, 48 kilometers southeast of RV on the south coast of the island, according to the observatory. No damage was reported, but Greek firefighters were dispatched to the scene as a precautionary measure. Greece is located on a number of fault lines and is sporadically hit by earthquakes. In October 2020, Monday, a magnitude 7 quake hit in the Aegean Sea between the Greek islands of Samos and the western Turkish city of Izmir, killing 114 people in Turkey and 2 teenagers in Greece. Hong Kong police raided the office of a local media outlet and arrested 6 current and former staff today, deepening fears for press freedom in a territory where media rights have been massively curtailed in recent years. Take a look.
國家安全處啦喺今晨開始嘅時候咧，香港唔同嘅地方咧就係採取咗個執法嘅行動嘅。行動咧係針對一個網媒立場新聞，同埋佢其他人咧係串謀發布多篇係帶煽動性嘅文章嘅。行動中咧，警方以刑事罪行條例嘅第9同埋第10條啦，即係串謀發布煽動刊物罪咧，一共係拘捕咗7人嘅，係包括咗3男4女，年齡咧係介乎34至到73歲嘅。其中咧包括咗係該網媒嘅編輯啦，同埋一啲嘅時任嘅董事。我可以俾一啲例子俾大家咧，就係究竟呢啲煽動性嘅文章入邊有啲咩嘅例子嘅嗱，例如咧，佢曾經咧都有形容過香港嘅抗爭者咧係被失蹤啦，係被侵犯啦。記住，呢個係喺我哋國安法實施之後啦，已經係離開黑暴嘅事件係一件頗長嘅時間啦。呢啲咧全部都係啲毫無事實根據嘅惡意嘅指控。佢擺咗落去嘅文章入邊。
More than 200 officers were deployed to search the Stand News newsroom with court authorization to seize journalistic materials, according to police, confirming 6 arrests. An AFP reporter saw Stand News acting editor-in-chief Patrick Lam being led handcuffed into the office. Police also arrested former editor-in-chief Chang Poo-kian, as well as 4 board members who resigned in June, according to local media. Around Wednesday lunchtime, National Security Police could be seen hauling boxes from Stand News office. The former Stand News board members arrested Wednesday are Hong Kong pop star Dennis Ho, barrister Margaret Ng, Christine Fang, and Chow Tat-chi, according to local media reports. Founded as a non-profit online news outlet in 2014, Stand News was nominated for Reporters Without Borders Press Freedom Prize in November. Stand News is the second Hong Kong media company targeted by the authorities after Apple Daily, which shut down in June after its assets were frozen under the national security law. City authorities have repeatedly criticized Stand News, with Security Chief Chris Tang this month accusing it of publishing biased, smearing, and demonizing reports on prison conditions. To the U.S. now, where the family of Valentina Aureliana Peralta described the terrifying moments before the 14-year-old girl who had recently moved to Los Angeles from Chile was killed by a stray bullet fired by a police officer. Take a look.
Escuchamos gritos, nos sentamos en un asiento abrazadas rezando. Cuando algo impactó a mi hija Valentina y nos lanzó al piso. Y murió en mi brazo. No pude hacer nada. No pude hacer nada.
We should not have to sacrifice innocent life in the name of safety when it was foreseeable that 2 days before that there were going to be people in a shopping plaza shopping.
Now, the family is asking for justice. Body cam footage of the chaotic police shooting of the teenager in California department store was released Monday as critics claimed officers were all too ready to open fire. 14-year-old Valentina Aureliana was in a changing room when the stray bullet fired by a policeman came through the wall and then hit her, killing her instantly. Valentina was shopping in a Los Angeles store with her mother in a holiday rush, buying clothes for her Quinceañera, the coming-of-age ceremony celebrated by Latin Americans. And police say they were called to the Burlington Coat Factory in North Hollywood on Thursday because of reports of a possible shooting. And CCTV images from the scene showed a clearly agitated man roaming the store with a bike lock in his hand before police arrived. He was lashing out at several people before repeatedly beating one woman about the head and body with a heavy-duty cable lock. Police body cam footage showed a number of officers arriving in the scene with guns drawn. Seconds after they located the suspect, one of them opens fire with a long-barreled gun and he falls to the floor and is handcuffed. A police commentary shows a freeze frame that it says shows one of the rounds the officer fired skipping off the floor and hitting the outside wall of the changing room where Valentina was hiding with her mother. Police Chief Michael Moore said he had ordered a full investigation of the incident. Hispanic civil rights group LULAC said responding officers had acted recklessly. Staying in the U.S., former U.S. Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, a Democrat from Nevada who rose from humble beginnings to lead the upper chamber during the presidencies of George W. Bush and Barack Obama, has died at the age of 82, according to officials on Tuesday. Reid, who used his experience in Congress to help Obama steer his landmark Affordable Care Act through the Senate, had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2018. Laconic and soft-spoken, Reid was born and raised in the mining town of Searchlight, Nevada on December 2, 1939, in a house with no hot water or indoor toilets. And despite his hardscrabble upbringing, he was elected to the Senate in 1986 and became the upper chamber's Democratic leader in the 2004 elections. In other news, at least 2 members of a pro-government militia were killed in an Israeli strike on the Syrian port of Latakia, a war monitor said today. The strike before dawn on Tuesday marked the second time that Israel has hit the key cargo hub since the outbreak of Syria's civil war in 2011. The Israeli attack, one of nearly 30 that have hit Syria this year, caused significant damage with stacks of containers catching fire. Syrian state media said the containers hit in the strikes carried engine oil and spare parts for cars and other vehicles. But the observatory said the cargo was arms and munitions. Since the start of the pandemic, Israel has routinely carried out airstrikes on its strife-torn neighbor, mostly targeting Syrian government troops as well as allied Iran-backed forces and Hezbollah fighters. And so far this year, Israel has targeted Syria nearly 30 times, killing 130 people, including 5 civilians and 125 loyalist fighters, according to observatory figures. The conflict in Syria has killed nearly 500,000 people since it started in 2011 with the brutal repression of peaceful demonstrations. Back here in the country, the Philippine National Police warned the public to refrain from posting holiday vacation plans on social media. In a briefing, PNP spokesperson Colonel Roderick Alba said such an act gives criminals a hint and opportunity to break into homes while its owners are away. Take a look.
Mag-ingat po yung ating mga kababayan. Iwanan po natin yung ating property, yung ating kabahayan. We should not report real-time or mag-post, real-time sa social media kung saan po kayo pupunta at naiwanan yung bahay nyo. Because that it only gives opportunity, or motive yung mga kababayan natin na pagtangkaan po, nakawan, or even kunin yung buhay mo. And of course, wag po magdala ng napakaraming personal property, mga alahas, pera. When you travel light, Yun lang po. And of course, you should report. May mga hotline yung ating Philippine National Police sa ating isumbong platform na kailangan pong i-report pag may nakita, maging vigilant tayo along the way, i-report ka agad so that it will not evolve into a serious crime.
The Philippine National Police also has discouraged the public from using firecrackers for the New Year celebrations for a safer and peaceful celebration. In the December 28 Laging Handa briefing, PNP spokesperson Colonel Roderick Augustus Alba said the regulated fireworks use is a whole-of-government approach that must be supported by all stakeholders. Take a look.
Ito ay a whole-of-government approach. It is an interagency effort. At of course, dapat suportahan ito ng ating mga stakeholders, lalo na itong mga binigyan na ng permit, no, Ma'am Rocky, in our communities, that they should abide with the permits given to them by the local government units. Kami naman sa PNP will ensure na yung Executive Order 28 in relation sa Republic Act 7183 sa pagtutulungan with the Bureau of Fire Protection kasama yung Department of Health to ensure that the minimum public health standard will be ensured, no, sa lalo na sa maka-attract ng maraming tao, no, during sa pagpaputok. So ito, Ma'am Rocky, they should limit ito sa firecracker zones duly designated by the local government units, at kung ano yung mga bawal ay bawal, at talagang wag po nilang ipilit, no, i-distribute or ibenta, because it will be subjected for confiscation, even to the arrest, no, ng mga possessor ng mga illegal na firecrackers and pyrotechnics. Kaya nga po kami ay we are adjustable, no, naging flexible yung ating PNP kung saan kinakailangan marami yung latag dapat doon. So anyway, we'll remind, no, yung ating mga directors na to enhance further, no, yung kanilang police presence, kasi ang inaalagaan natin dito is yung safety and the security. But sa part po ng PNP, I'd like to take this opportunity, Yusek Rocky, na kami sa part sa PNP, kung pwede, we discourage yung paggamit ng firecrackers during the celebration ng New Year. Kasi we have so many ways, no, in celebrating this peacefully without hurting somebody using firecrackers.
The PNP has been coordinating with the Department of Interior and Local Government, or DILG, for the designation of firecracker zones to ensure security. Meanwhile, police and anti-narcotics agents have arrested 2 suspects and seized 534 million pesos worth of shabu in a buy-bust operation in Mandaluyong, according to the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency on Wednesday. In a statement, PDEA spokesperson Derek Carrion said that suspects Mike Abac, 32, and Edison de Guzman, 37, both residents of Guadalupe Nuevo, Makati City, were arrested at a condominium unit at around 6 p.m. on Monday. During the operation, the authorities seized 77.5 kilograms of shabu, and some of which were placed inside red Chinese tea bags, estimated to be worth 534.75 million pesos, various drug paraphernalia, and a mobile phone. From the COVID pandemic to the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan, extreme weather, we look back on the key events of this year. Take a look.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol.
They broke the glass?
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
Office of President of the United States.
Thank you. Shukran, Fadila.
With great sadness that a short time ago I received word from Buckingham Palace
Inspiration 4 crew on board Dragon and Falcon 9.
We're seeing the world every 90 minutes. That's how fast we're traveling around it. It's pretty incredible.
አስቸኳይ ጊዜ አዋጅ የአስቸኳይ ጊዜ አዋጅ ቁጥር 5 2014ን አጽድቋል።
ከነጻነት እንዲሁም ካለመገዛት በሁለቱም
Prime Minister Mia Mottley, thank you so much for honoring me in this way. I have traveled the world and received several awards and recognitions, but nothing Nothing compares to being recognized in the soil that you grew in.
Das Grundgesetz und die Gesetze des Bundes wahren und verteidigen, meine Pflichten gewissenhaft.
One of the world's most famous storytellers, Hans Christian Andersen, is being celebrated in his hometown in central Denmark with a new museum designed by Japanese architect Kengo Kuma, which combines biographical elements with a fantasy world. Take a look.
We felt that people visiting the old museum, they were looking for something more. It was a traditional biography museum where you had a lot of things, artifacts, and then text. People were looking for his fairy tales because that's what they know. It's his fairy tales. They need the fantasy and his inspiration in the daily life.
When you come into this museum, it takes you to a completely other world, and how fantastic is it to be taken away from your daily struggles in life and be taken away into a completely other world with, you put the headphones on and you're gone for like an hour. So, I think you must have a black soul if you don't enjoy this, museum.
I would recommend just the experience of the room together, the design, the architecture together with the sound and the music. It's a whole experience, I think, that comes together all the senses and how the room talks so beautiful together with the stories.
The new museum, designed by Japanese architect Kengo Kuma, the man behind Tokyo's new Olympic Stadium, opened in the summer, but work was only completed in early December. From above, its circular structures and winding outdoor gardens resemble 4 green buttons supported on wooden stilts. With 2/3 of the exhibition space below ground, the architect was inspired by the Tinderbox, Andersen's story in which a hollow tree is a gateway to an underground world. The museum's metamorphosis began in the early 2010s after Odense authorities drew up a plan to keep cars out of the center of the city of 205,000 inhabitants. Since the reopening, 40,000 people have passed through its doors, but the new COVID safety measures introduced in December meant it had to close once again, and the numbers had in any case been hit badly by the drop-off in foreign tourists. And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
Pangarap ng bawat Pilipino, hangarin ng Northern Cement. Ahon! Bangon! Sulong! Pinalaki ng Northern Cement ang kapasidad ng kanilang planta para steady ang supply ng sementong tigasin. Northern Cement Max Plus, Supreme at Max Pro. Ahon! Bangon! Sulong!
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Stock markets mostly retreated today as it showed signs of fatigue amid lingering fears over the Omicron variant and uncertainty about economic prospects for next year. COVID-19 cases have surged across the world, prompting governments to impose new measures to limit contagion, while the travel industry faced thousands of flight cancellations. Oil prices dropped today while the dollar steadied against major rivals. With market activity much reduced for the holiday season, investors continue to tentatively price in a global recovery hitting a minor bump and not a pothole, according to Jeffrey Haley, senior market analyst at Owanda Trading Group. Reflecting the uncertainty, Tokyo closed lower in thin holiday trade today, with the market weighed down by U.S. futures losses. But London rose in midday deals as the benchmark FTSE 100 index resumed trading after a long holiday weekend. Moody's economist Mark Zandi said in a note the Omicron wave would dent growth in the first quarter but not have a material impact on next year overall because of a rebound later in the year. In other business news, Swedish battery group Northvolt said today it has launched its Gigafactory in northern Sweden, the first of its kind to be undertaken by a European company on the continent. Take a look. Intended to compete with the U.S. electric car giant Tesla and Asian producers of lithium-ion batteries, the factory in Skellefteå assembled its first battery cell late Tuesday, according to Northvolt. Once at full capacity, the site is expected to produce enough batteries to power 1 million electric vehicles annually, with an annual production capacity of 60 gigawatt hours, according to the firm. Tesla is due to launch its first factory in Europe shortly, and Asian rivals have significant operations in Poland and Hungary, but no European firm had yet operated a significant facility until now. Novak Djokovic has pulled out of this week's ATP Cup in Sydney, according to organizers. On Wednesday, heightened doubts over whether he will defend his Australian Open title. There has been intense speculation as to whether he will travel to Australia, having refused to confirm if he has been inoculated against the coronavirus. Team Serbia will now be led by world number 33 Dusan Lajovic. Djokovic, the 9 Australian Open champion, could win a record 21st Grand Slam title if he plays at Melbourne Park next month, but to enter Australia and members of his entourage have to be vaccinated. He has previously expressed his opposition to the vaccine, and his father, Sturdan, said in late November that Djokovic would probably not play the first Grand Slam of the year, accusing the organizers of blackmail. The ATP Cup has been hit by several withdrawals, either because of COVID or injury, and as a result, France will replace Austria in Group B after Dominic Thiem and Denis Novak pulled out, according to organizers today. The news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
Hindi ako makakatulog pag di ko nalaman kung ano yung chika! May isang aktor, tapos... Sulap!
ang pinakabagong gag show.
Dito sa Net25.
Walang iba kundi ang
Piso TV!
From sizzling temperatures to Messi and Ronaldo and pensioners in space, here are some of the most significant records struck in 2021. Take a look. July 2021 was the hottest month globally ever recorded according to the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and wildfires in Siberia, North America, and around the Mediterranean caused record levels of CO2 emissions in July and August, according to the EU's Earth Monitoring Service. And as economies reopened from their COVID-induced slumber, firing heightened gas demand, prices in Asian, European, and British gas hit record peaks. Europe's deference Dutch TTF gas price hit 187.78 euros per megawatt hour. The United States carried out its biggest ever airlift in the wake of the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan in August, bigger even than the evacuation of Saigon at the end of the Vietnam War. It airlifted more than 123,000 people out of Kabul, including U.S. citizens, Afghan interpreters, and others who supported the U.S. mission. Around 55,000 people were evacuated from southern Vietnam in 1975. And another record, the giant container ship Ever Given blocked the Suez Canal in March, bringing a halt to shipping for 6 days in one of the world's busiest waterways. The ship, almost as long as New York's Empire State Building, caused a record traffic jam of 422 ships loaded with 26 million tons of merchandise, worsening supply difficulties already disrupted by the pandemic. And the most dramatic Chinese incursion into disputed Taiwanese airspace occurred at the start of October as China marked its annual National Day when a record 159 flights crossed into Taiwan's southwestern air defense zone in 4 days. Self-ruled Taiwan has lived under the threat of a Chinese invasion since the two sides split at the end of a civil war in 1949. Its 23 million people have since learned to cope with periods of saber-rattling with Beijing. And cryptocurrency Bitcoin soared to record levels in late 2021, being valued at $68,513 on November 9. The digital currency increasingly wants support from small and large investors, some of whom see it as a way of protecting themselves against inflation, which hit a 30-year high in the U.S. in October. Bitcoin has always been volatile but remains the world's largest digital currency with a market value of more than $1.1 trillion. And art sales records in 2021 included works by Frida Kahlo, veteran French artist Pierre Soulages, and Banksy reaching sky-high levels. Revenues from sales of contemporary art have never been as high, totaling $2.7 billion, boosted in particular by the explosion in sales of unique digital works and NFTs, or non-fungible tokens. An NFT-powered sculpture by the digital artist Mike Winkelmann, better known as Beeple, went for $29 million at Christie's. The sculpture is a 3D 7-foot-tall digital light box made of 4 LED screens that shows an astronaut strolling through ever-changing landscapes. And Captain Kirk of Star Trek, alias veteran actor William Shatner, became the oldest person to go into space at 90 years old. Mr. Shatner, whose name has been synonymous with space exploration since he played Captain James T. Kirk in the original Star Trek series more than half a century ago, became the first non-agenarian to cross the Kármán line, the widely recognized boundary between the atmosphere and space about 63 miles above the Earth. He was among 24 non-professionals who blasted off into space in 2021 on rockets owned by billionaires Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and Richard Branson. The space tourism industry is quickly growing. Many passengers without government space flight training have been able to fly into space recently. And another record, 2 of football's living legends Portugal's Cristiano Ronaldo and Argentina's Lionel Messi rewrote the record books. Ronaldo became the top scorer of all time for a national team with 115 goals and also the most capped European, having been selected 184 times. Messi, meanwhile, outstripped Brazil's Pelé as the best Latin American striker with 79 goals for Argentina. And lastly, Nepal's Kami Rita Sherpa beat his own record for climbing Everest, claiming a 25th successful ascent to the roof of the world in May. And Australia's Chloe McCardle, 36 years old, became the person to have swum the channel the most, a remarkable 44 times. And with that, we end tonight's broadcast. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you back tomorrow. And as I always say, at the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times. Good night.
This program is supported by Northern Cement Max Plus, Supreme at Max Pro Northern Cement,